Yeah, happy spring, everybody. Second day of spring here in Minnesota. Feels like it. Just welcome to spring ball 2023. Glad to have you all back. Haven't spoke to you in a long time, so we get a chance to do that today. I told Paul to go a little extra, get some extra questions. First of all, just want to welcome Coach Dawn Plitzowitz, Plitzowite, coming from West Virginia. Had a chance to talk with her yesterday. I had a great conversation with her. You talk about energy. I know our women's basketball program's in great hands, and really excited to watch her coach. So get her over at some football practice hopefully here soon, and get around our program as well. I want to wish Bob Motzko a ton of luck as they get into the NCAA tournament here coming up. And then also Coach Kelly as they host the NCAA Swimming and Diving Championships here on campus, actually. So it'll be good to have that. So wish them all the best as well to our men's team. So, we're really excited about the spring. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. We haven't talked football. I know we got a chance to talk during Pro Day, but that was really for the Pro Day guys. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. We're excited for spring. It's a whole new year, whole different football team. It's a very unique team. It's got different challenges, different strengths as we go forward than we did last year. So it's really exciting, fun team to work with. College football's changed a ton, as you all know, and it continues to change and be affected by all the changes daily. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. We'll open up.
PJ, when you talk about those changes in the new team, with two new coordinators on offense and Ethan getting his first full go here, how do you see the offense evolving with those three guys at the leadership level?
Well, you're always evolving. I think that when you kind of go back and you look at our tenure here, we've had a team that, we ran the foot. We were pretty balanced and run pass. We had Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks and a young Mohammed, and we had, Tyler Johnson even before with a young Rashad Bateman, and won a lot of games with those guys. But then we also had two first-team All-Big Ten wide receivers one year where we were really pass-heavy. Tanner's stats were incredible through the air. Of course, we always had a good ground game, but the pass was the main focus because the personnel on that in that particular year allowed us to do those things we were doing. Then you look at last year, and we have, arguably the greatest running back in the history of the University of Minnesota, and why wouldn't you give the ball to him almost every single play? We were a little banged up and thin at wide out, and so I think a sign of a really good balanced football team, right? Balance isn't just about offense or just about running and passing. Balanced offense has to do with, are your playmakers touching the ball enough to make a ton of plays to score a lot of points? Now, you can have a lot of playmakers like we did back in 2019, a ton of them. Everywhere you look, there was another playmaker. You got to have a little bit of luck with that, staying healthy as well. And last year we had a few, and they touched the ball an awful lot. I mean, look at Brevin Spanford, look at Daniel Jackson, Mohamed Ibrahim. Those are really our playmakers. We'd like to be able to say we want to have more than that. When you look at 19, we had that. So I think we're looking at doing everything we can to make sure that the playmakers on this particular football team touch the ball as much as they possibly can, whether that is through the air, whether that's through the ground. How that looks different, we're going to find out. That's what we're building as we continue to go. And we haven't even played football yet. This is the first time in the next 6 weeks we get a chance to play football. So shaping that offense is going to be a lot of fun. Because there's a lot of guys on here I'm sure you're going to ask me about. I can't even answer the question because I haven't seen them play football yet live. We've got walkthroughs, we've had meeting time, we've had, mat drills, we have winter conditioning, but I haven't had a chance to really work with them in football, neither of our coaches. So we're excited to do that for sure. But we're definitely going to look different just because it's a different team. Now, what that different looks like, we're going to find out. And that's the fun of this whole thing. You get to build your team as you get closer to September. So that's the fun part of the offseason.
Will it be Greg or Matt calling the plays?
We're going to keep that internal just for right now. They both called plays, and they are they're really good friends. They spend a ton of time together off the field with their families. In the office, they have an unbelievable working relationship. They both called plays. Matt's called. He's called most of our bowl games here. Greg's called plays at Western Michigan. So we'll figure that out internally. But we're going to keep that, or we'll figure that out eventually. But internally, we kind of have a plan of what we're going to do with both of them. But eventually, we'll let you know who that is.
When you talk about playmakers for the upcoming season, who are you most excited to look at this spring, and who has some opportunities to seize this spring?
Well, when you look at it, Brevin Spanford and Chris Ottman-Bell, they're two guys that are going to be limited in the spring, and So it gives opportunity and room for a lot of other guys to do that. I'm excited for all of them. I know that's really vague, but I am, because we brought in a lot of transfers at the wide receiver position. I'm really excited to see what they can do. We've got some young up-and-coming running backs, the Zach Evans of the world and the Darius Taylors of the world. And you have Bryce back. And you start looking at all those other guys that have done a ton of things for us. Then you have a different quarterback. We've always kind of had Tanner, and we knew what Tanner could do. I think everybody's seen a glimpse of what Ethan can do, and then it's like, okay, well, where do we go from there, and how do we continue to evolve the offense, to Andy's point, with the playmakers that we have? And we look at everybody as playmakers. So even our offensive line is going to be a little bit different and more unique than it's been. So I'd like to be able to sit there and just give you specific names of guys we're really excited about. I'm excited about all of them because they're all growing. They're working incredibly hard. We've had some guys leave. We've added some guys, but that's going to happen. You're going to see that happen throughout the entire year. I mean, that's what makes college football so unique. It used to be one time a year. Now you're having it basically 3 times a year, where you're having these free agent markets every third of the year. Your team changes somehow, some way. We're talking everybody. I mean, there were 200 plus kids in one day enter the transfer portal in basketball. I think there's only 13, 14 scholarship players in basketball per team. So think about how many kids are doing it. So again, you don't know what your team's truly going to look like roster-wise probably until like July 1. That's when you really know what your team's going to look like, what the team you're going to play with that particular year.
PJ, how do you make the co-coordinator thing work? Because you've got that title now on defense too. As far as just leadership responsibility during the week and on game day, what are the?
Well, ultimately, what will happen is when I give the co-coordinator titles, eventually one guy is going to call plays. I mean, Joe Rossi calls plays, on defense, and then offensively, we'll announce who's going to be able to do that once we get there. But they're both very capable of doing it. I just want to keep that internal on offense for a while. But the co-coordinator, it's also stuff that as you develop coaches within your program, you want to make sure we're not just developing players, we're developing men, we're developing coaches. I want them to be, coordinators, head coaches one day. So you give them the ability, and they might have a different responsibility than the actual play caller, but they have that pressure, and they have the ability to design it. They have the ability to design practice. They have more responsibilities. Doesn't mean they're actually calling it as well, because I think at the end of the day, one guy's got to be able to call it. But the kind of helps you develop those guys as coordinators, the guys who want to do that.
What's impressed you about Sean Tyler at Western Michigan and since he's been here?
Yeah, Sean's one of those running backs that, that we talked about, we're really excited about having. And also Max Grant, I think, has had a great offseason as well. So Newt can throw Newbin in there too. And he's one guy that can do a ton for us. But, Sean can really run. And I haven't had a chance, again, to work with him personally, but we have guys on our staff who did work with him personally and know how good of a player he can be. He's got legit speed. I mean, he is tightly wound. He's twitched. He's explosive. He can work really well in space. I mean, he's a jitterbug, and he's really strong. So, but again, when you throw other guys in there, it's going to be you remove Mohammed Ibrahim from the situation, and then you see all these other young guys, and Bryce is a guy who's been there a long time. But then all of a sudden, we're going to find out what Darius can do. We're going to find out what Sean can do. We're going to find out what Max Grant can do, and Zach Evans and Newbin. It's going to be a lot of fun to be able to hand the ball off to those guys and see who emerges as some of the next guys.
How's the transition been with the new running backs coach?
Yeah,
With Kenny leaving for Kent State.
Yeah, no, we check in on Kenny here and there, and we're learning a lot. We watch Kenny's videos, sometimes in a staff meeting, we'll watch Kenny's videos that he's posting, and we get excited about Kenny doing that. He couldn't be in a better situation for him, so we're excited about that. But Nick McKissick-Luke it's been a very smooth transition. They're both tremendous running back coaches, but they both are even better people. And I think Nick McKissick-Luke has walked into that room and has really just kind of taken over where Kenny left off, to be honest. I mean, they have a lot of shared philosophies. They know each other, and our system kind of fits what they did at Northern Illinois. They ran the ball at Northern Illinois too. And he played running back, and started at Alabama, then moved on with his career. But when you play the position, then you also coach the position. I mean, you know what you're looking for. He's just got a great opportunity to develop some really good running backs, I think, that are young.
You mentioned wanting to improve the consistency of the pass rush. How much of an emphasis is that entering spring ball?
A ton. You're going to see a whole. The great thing is we brought in a lot of people in the offseason for pass rush technique, how people build pass rush, whether it's an NFL organization or whether it's through college football. We know that we have to get better at that. We know that's one of our deficiencies, and it has been for a while. But we've got some really good pass rushers now. And I feel like now we can really develop them. And so we're going to have periods of practice, just like you've seen like the program period, which is the ball program, the ball period. You've seen 78%. We work on like explosive plays. We work on, tackling and things like that. The tackling convention period. You're also going to see a pass rush period where every single person is working on some form of pass rush. And on offense, it'd be defending that pass rush. On defense, it's actually pass rushing, whether it's a corner cat blitzer. So we have this series of progressions of what we're going to teach. Now, we're going to be elite pass rushers tomorrow? Probably not. But as we progress, there's a spring development, there's a summer development, and then there's going to be a training camp development to that. And then hopefully, we elevate our game come fall.
A lot of publicly vocal leaders are leaving the program, Tanner, John, and but are there any players stepping up that you're seeing maybe into that more vocal leadership role?
Well, I think that's what we want to be able to create. I think sometimes when you have some vocal leaders who have been there for a long time, it keeps the next vocal leaders a little quieter. And then once they leave, it's like taking the jar off of the grasshopper, the top off the jar of the grasshopper, eventually can jump out. And I think that's what we're looking for. You always want that from your quarterback. And I think everything starts and ends with your quarterback. It's one of the most important positions in all of sports. And I think right now, Cole and Nathan done a really good job of being very boisterous on that side. Cody Lindenberg and Tyler Newman. Tyler Newman has no problem making his voice heard. I think we all know that. But even Justin Wally has been able to do that as well. And Kyler Baugh up front. So we've Danny Strigow. And the offensive side, there's some guys that, Daniel Jackson's really taken a leadership role on. Brevin's been there, Crab, obviously. So we've got some guys who have done it, and then we add this new mix of guys who are just waiting for that. Nathan Bowe, it's hard to be able to be that boisterous when you're sitting behind maybe one of the best centers, if not the best center in the country. But now he's really taken on that role. And nobody loves Minnesota more than Nathan Bowe. So, we look for him to be a big part of what we do. And then Quinn Carroll would be another one. The good thing is we have a lot of them. They just haven't had to do it as much as they've had to do. And we'll figure that out. You'll be at practice. You'll see. You can judge for yourself. But there's been a lot of guys who have stepped up.
Is Ethan fully healed? Do you expect him to get a full workout or full workload in spring ball?
Oh, yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he was fine. He recovered very nicely.
What's your message to the new guys in your program and the younger players about not letting any moment go to waste here in spring ball, seeing how you guys only have a limited amount of practice to make sure they put good product on film for you guys to evaluate all summer?
Well, I think we're always competing. I think that, you're always either growing or you're getting worse. I'm a firm believer in that. And you got to make a decision every single day. And the great thing about spring, as we've always said, is spring you'll never win the job. You're going to set up winning the job. And I always love to keep day one depth charts because I don't pick the depth chart. I'm the head coach. Now, I'm ultimately responsible for the depth chart. And yes, I do make the depth chart. I'm the head coach. So that's one of my responsibilities. The people on the field are my responsibility because I'm putting them on the field. But players make the depth chart. I love day one depth charts because when you get to day 15 of spring ball, when you remake the depth chart, a lot of times that guys that were number one, well, they're not number one anymore. And that's not my fault. So you got beat out. And that's what's so fun about being able to create competition constantly. And I think that's what even happens with the portal of new guys constantly getting to come in. When guys left your program, you couldn't bring them in until the following next recruiting class. Now you can constantly bring them in. And it creates this competition constantly. There's always going to be 85 scholarship players. It's not going to be like, we lost 6 guys, 7 guys. We're going to be at 77 scholarships. We're going to fill those somehow, some way, either with walk-ons or we're going to bring them in with the transfer portal. And, Mike McCarthy used to sit there and say this to us when I was a San Francisco 49er and he was our OC. Coaches' jobs are to teach and demand. Players' jobs are prepare and perform, football-wise. Right? At the end of the day, we're here to teach and demand a certain way of doing something, which is getting harder and harder and harder to do because of where we are in our society. Holding people accountable, keeping them with high responsibility, that's getting harder because everybody takes offense to everything. It's hard. It's just harder to do. So you've got to do it in a very unique way without damaging the integrity of your program, the integrity of the university, the standards and the values that you uphold, and get them better every day as a man, husband, father, football player, student, athlete. I mean, it's getting a little bit more challenging. And the ability for people to just, if they do get disciplined or they don't do something right now, okay, I'm leaving. And throw that in the mix, right? It's a very unique time. So, and then it forces you to evolve as a coach. So, long answer to your question, but there's a lot of pieces to that when you're talking about developing your team, because it's not about just this, you know us, we're a life program, we're not just a football program. So for us, those are the challenging pieces, especially accountability in 2023, holding people accountable for the standard of what they say they want for their life. You know, and if you want to be a YouTuber, good. But there's the best YouTuber and there's the worst YouTuber. So when my son says he wants to be a YouTuber, I'm like, great. Well, then you're going to be the best YouTuber there is. There's a price to pay to be the best YouTuber. And you need followers. You need great content. You need to know what the heck you're doing. You got to work really hard at it. I'm sure. I've never been a YouTuber, so I don't know what that is. But I bet you the best YouTubers out there, they're really good at what they do, and they work incredibly hard at it. It's the same thing. So sometimes we take this generation, put them over here and say, well, they do this, they complain. But that's not true. They just have different things, just like our parents, when they talk to us about whatever music listen, that stuff. Same thing. You know, your son's daughter's on a computer and they're like, that stuff. There's value to that if they're working at being the best in whatever they want to do. But being their best is what the focus should be, not the best. The best is subjective.
PJ, what's the status of Dalen Wright with the program?
He's no longer on the roster. And just like my normal standard policy, whether they're not on the roster, whether in the portal, whether somewhere, we just don't talk about players that aren't here anymore. But if they're not here anymore, you know, wish them 100% success and wish them the best and always support them. And we'll do anything for them.
What went into the decision to build an analyst staff here in the offseason?
Well, the decision was, it made it pretty easy. We got more money in our staff pool, so I was able to create some positions, which was really good for us. And I think that having other people around with even more expertise adds value to the staff. It's more opinions in the room. It gives you the ability as a coach to, you know how I love to hire from within. And it gives you the ability to keep building coaches within your organization that when things do open, you can just hire from within and keep elevating coaches, and you don't have to retrain people. And then also everybody has different expertise on certain things. And the way college football is changing, whether it's defensively or offensively, the systems are changing. It's good to have more input. And you can keep developing coaches that way. So I'm very grateful to our administration that they allowed me to have some more people on staff and create some positions. And we've got more student coaches than we've ever had, people who want to be coaches, which is really exciting as an educator and a teacher, that a lot of young people want to do it too.
Along those lines, how's Winston been now as your former player who's now back already?
We had a number 46 reference today in our defensive room. So he's not too far removed from being a player, which is crazy because when I watch him coach, it energizes me. And that takes a lot. He is so young, but age is a number. That just proves that it's a number. You would think Winston has been coaching 30 years. The attention to detail, the way he teaches, the way he motivates, his energy level, his detail, his organization, his confidence in what he believes in, the way he handles himself. We all love talking to Winston as a player. He was easy. He'd come up here. He was a great interview. He's that way as a coach with his players. And I think one of the best attributes you can have as a coach is, do your players want to play for you? And I know this, with the 3 months he's been here, our guys want to play for him. And there's been a completely different energy shift, right? And attention to detail and want to and togetherness inside that room. And that's a direct reflection of Winston. And as hard as he worked as a player, because he was never the best player, right? But he made himself a great player because of how hard he worked. He does the same thing as a coach. But like I said, the best, I went into his room the other day and I sat there and I told the entire staff, I said, if you want to watch one of the best position meetings, you need to watch Winston's. And the great thing, Grimmy, what I can do now is I say that about a lot of our coaches. You can feel free. I'll let you in there. I'll let you sit in Danny Collins' meeting one day, and you'll watch how great of a teacher Danny Collins is. And you'll see how great of a teacher Joe Rossi is. You'll see, what a great teacher Winston is. And you're going to see what a great teacher. We have great teachers. It's so fun to watch them. And especially when you've coached them. And then you knew they wanted to be a coach. And then you have the opportunity to help them in their careers. He's a special one, that's for sure.
You gave him the
But we'll see how the D-line plays first.
You gave him the newcomer coordinator title.
Yeah.
What goes into that? What does that look like?
I'm getting older, and not saying that I'm getting older in age where it's ending for me. It's just, as we had the conversation about YouTubing, and I asked my kids, there's just so many people. I was with my kids the other day. We were on spring break, and they're like, Dad, you ever heard of this guy? I was like, who? This guy. He's like the most popular X, whatever it was. And I was like, no, I never heard of him. Have you ever heard of this guy? Never heard of him in my life. How do you not know this guy, Dad? So you're looking like, wow, and I'm pretty connected, right? And so I'm sitting there going, man, I need somebody to kind of help me that way, maybe just to, and Winston's perfect for it. Winston knows a lot about everything. And so I always think, too, when guys come in, and they're coming at different periods, head coaches a lot of times aren't here certain times of years. Even when players come in, whether we have Big Ten meetings somewhere else, or you're on donor trips, or you're somewhere else, it's good to have somebody back here, like an assistant head coach, that could really help the young guys. And I think somebody who played the position, played at this school, as an alum of this school, played in this culture, there's nobody better to help the young people keep elevating and develop and transition from high school to college than Winston. So I do that, and Garrett and I kind of run a lot of our newcomer meetings and their orientations when they get here, because there's a lot of them. But it's nice to be able to have Winston be able to take some of that over too, and have that connection with somebody who actually played here, who actually went through the program as a player. And so that's why we gave him the title. And it was within like a week he had the job. I'm like, I got to give this guy some type of title because he's that good. And so that's what we came up with. And it's a perfect role for Winston.
What did you like about the background and perspective of Andrew Soder?
Yeah, very diverse, very different than what we do and how we've done it, but gives us a lot more options, more opinions. Again, very detail-oriented guy, played the position of tight end, called plays at San Jose State, called plays back at Kent. So it was great to have that type of system come into our offense, just to be able to help us with some things that we want to do possibly in the pass game too. And as we keep evolving with this particular team, but he's a really good recruiter, really good man. We're really excited to have him.
PJ, do you anticipate continuity in certain tackle spots, and how's the interior look?
Yeah, we're going to move a lot of things around up front. Us, we play 8-9 guys. You're going to have 5 starters, and then you're going to find rotations. Like one year we had 6, I said we had 6 starters, right? Because we had a lot of offensive linemen. But what a lot of these guys can do that are this particular team is they can play tackle, but they can play guard. Some can play center as well. We're just going to find where do they fit best for the 2023 season. And we're going to find that out in spring. But you're going to see a lot of people. So you'll see Nathan Bowe play center, play guard. You're going to see J.J. Gade play tackle, but play guard. You're going to see Martez Lewis play tackle and guard. Quinn Carroll can move all around. You're going to see, even young guys like Greg Johnson's come in here and really kind of accelerated, made us accelerate his growth fast. And you're going to see Tyler Cooper compete at different spots. So I'm excited because there's a lot of competition out there. You look at a guy like Tony Nelson, who redshirted last year. He's leaps and bounds ahead of where he was last year. Ashton Beers, tons ahead of where he was. And then you obviously have, I think Ariante will be, pretty much that left tackle position. We probably might not move around Ariante a little bit. He wants a little tight end, though. He wants the ball here and there. So we'll see. I told him we'll see. But I think through the O-line, I think it's going to be a little bit more, let's see who the best 5 are at which position are the best 5 best at.
Take 1 or 2 more.
How do you feel about your linebacker depth right now?
I like it. I have to see more on the field to like it more for how far guys have grown. But that's what you have the portal for if you need it. to be able to add some depth. But I love where Cody Lindenberg's at. I think Devin Williams has had one of the best off seasons amongst anybody. You look at a Maverick, you look at a Gerlach, you look at guys like that. Seelig came in here as a transfer. We're expecting big things from him, but I still haven't worked with him yet. We probably weren't going to take another linebacker, and then we had one transfer from the linebacker position. So, again, you want to be able to fill that number with somebody. But right now, we're just going to see what that looks like, see how far the guys have come that we have a lot of faith and hope and aspiration for, and a lot of confidence in, see how they go through the spring.
What stood out when you were evaluating Crooms and Spencer?
Yeah, I think it was just the ability to one, play in space, create space when they didn't have it, the ability to make a lot of plays, not only just routine catches, but big catches, contested catches, 50-50 balls, and they play with incredible confidence. And again, this is never going to stop. You're going to keep bringing competition into the program. I mean, it happened before in college football, but it was just a one-time thing. Now, like I said, it's happening 3 times a year. And, when players leave, you're going to bring players in. It's just part of it. You're going to look at your roster and, we're still a high school development team, though. You got to realize that. I mean, 80, 90% of our guys are all high school players, and we're going to develop them. But sometimes when they get developed, they take off and leave. So you've got to be able to replace that with a more mature player, that the ones that you're expecting to play at a more mature level, when a mature guy leaves, you want to replace it with a mature level. Sometimes when a younger guy leaves, you can replace it with a younger guy. So I think that's the give and take of all of that.
Have you had to change the way you do things because of exactly that, where, I don't want to say it's more of a business, but it feels like more of a business, where a guy's going to worry more about what's best for me and not what's best for us, and that's your whole ethos.
It is, but I would say that changing who you are, I'll never change who I am. I am who I am. I think that's really, I think you have to be who you are, but I think you have to adapt. If you don't adapt, you die on the vine. And we coaches have to adapt more and are forced to adapt more today than you ever have been. And I think that's always healthy. We adapted before, but you adapted in a very different way, maybe a slower rate. It forces you to adapt even at a faster rate. And because you don't know what your team's even going to look like before, a month to 2 months before you actually have to play a game. So we will never treat this like a business. We never have treated it like a business, nor will I ever do that. I will never change that way. This will always be a life program. Academics, athletics, social, spiritual. When it's a business, it's about the bottom line. This is not that way. Kids are not businesses to me. This is still an educational system, a university, a school. We're still coaches and teachers, and there's still students and peers and players and student athletes. So to me, that will never change the way we're running our program, but we will adapt how we do it. We'll adapt as times change, because I think you have to do those things. But it's forced me to be a better coach, a better teacher. It's forced things that maybe I'm not good at to be really good at, or to be better at. I've told you this before. I'm not a very patient person, and I'm not sure I'll ever be patient. But I can be more patient tomorrow, and if I wasn't today, then I'm going to work on it to be better tomorrow. And I think that's what it forces you to do, and to have a different maybe perspective of the things that are happening. Kids aren't leaving. It used to be, last thing I'll say, because this will make sense. It used to be if a kid left the program, all of you would ask me, like, what happened? What's wrong? What's wrong with the program? There's something going on inside there, right? Now I think that's very different. Now it's just second nature. A guy leaves. We all want guys to have better opportunities. We want them to be able to go to the NFL. If a guy's not playing, he has the option to leave. If he doesn't fit, he doesn't stay in a place where he doesn't fit for 3-4 years and waste that time and then become combative with coaches and peers. And you don't have time for that. And this allows people to get to where you fit. So it's maybe a little bit more, even more now of a selection process than it was just a recruiting process. But I think you have to keep adapting. And that's the exciting part about it, though. But to say that, I'm never going to look at it from the eyes of how we look at a football program, I mean, it's still a life program and always will be.
A question I have for you: how has the NIL impacted you so far in recruiting, in terms of has it hurt you, or are you guys benefiting from the NIL?
Well, I think it's just like the transfer portal, because it gets lumped into those changes of college football. We've benefited off NIL. We've benefited off the transfer portal. And we've been hurt by the transfer portal and hurt by NIL. So I think it's give and take, and every program deals with it. But I do think I can speak on this. Our players are tremendous with the NIL. I think they do a great job with doing it here on campus, having the resources that they have, living in a major media market with major corporations and major businesses, and even a lot of small businesses who have really linked up with our players for platforms, for resources, for their brands, for whatever they're doing. It's been very healthy that way. And you could look at it two different ways. You're going to give a lot of these young people a lot of money and they're not going to do very well with it. Or you can say, hey, they're going to have a lot of money at a younger age. If you have the right programs in place, but it's not looked at as a business and you have an educational system behind that. Think about if we all started making way more money at 17, 18 years old, one, how more fiscally responsible maybe we would all have been instead of making those decisions and those mistakes at 25 to 30. Maybe they can get them out of the way. And if not, if they're making the good decisions, which you hope your life program's helping them, then you can actually help them take that money and invest it, do really smart things with it, give it away, open their own 501c3s, charities, do things and do good with it, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of things that can elevate your life or destroy your life, and they're all pretty much the same thing. It's just how you use it. So, but again, it's one of those things in college football that make it very unique and different. I think young people are picking schools a little bit more based on packages that you have instead of just saying, where's the best fit? But again, for me, it'll always be the best fit. And it kind of weeds people out pretty quickly based on what your belief is and who you are as a person, how you run your program. So that's what I mean. It's constantly moving. There's nothing boring about college football right now in our profession. So that's for sure. But I look forward to sharing our team with all of you. I look forward to seeing you at practices. Look forward to doing this a lot more. So I think you'll enjoy this football team. They're fun to coach, and we'll find out what they can do here soon. So row the boat, Sky Mile, go Gophers. Happy spring. See ya.
We can make that work.
I don't even know what that means.
I think we can make it fly.
Oh, perfect.